So, hello and welcome back yet again to Christine's slightly unhinged recaps of chapters. I will be there are a couple of passages that I actually do want to read as I'm recapping, not going against any sort of copyright to read an entire chapter. Christine has learned her lesson, but definitely just to let you experience them. But yeah, I hope you guys are kind of enjoying these unhinged recaps. It's not quite the same as experiencing a full chapter, but I'm kind of hoping that I'm inspiring a bunch of people to go out and buy these books because they're really good. Um, Mercedes Lackey is a fantastic author for the way she characterizes things. Again, I haven't read anything that James Mallory has done on his own, but considering how well he gels with Mercedes Lackey, I gotta think that he's probably a really good author as well. Now, Christine has 2 pages, front and back, filled with chicken scratch. So this is probably another one where we're only going to get one chapter done because I feel like I'm writing a nightly book report, and that's kind of weird, especially coming from me who was a terrible student. So, yay for learning new skills. A new skill I should learn is to figure out how to use like some sort of Word document so I can just type it and then hit print. Because let me tell you, I have not written this much in a very long time, probably since school. I'm not a writer, I'm not even much of a typer. In fact, as I was editing the video that is going out tomorrow morning of a walk where I had, just put some little uh, what do you call that, subtitles through it because I didn't really feel like talking. Actually, I did feel like talking on the walk. I just didn't because I knew nobody was going to be able to hear me because, oh my goodness, was it windy today? Beautiful day for a walk, but very, very windy. So I tried to edit it and turn down the wind noise. Georgia, just for you, I didn't actually add any music. So you get wind noise, bird noises, and the thumping of Christine feet as I walked along. I did think about adding some music, but sometimes it's nice just to let the nature sounds come through. Next one will probably have music because there is nothing that I am really consistent at as far as editing choices go. I just kind of do what I feel like. But I went out and I walked and it was beautiful. And oh, yeah, that's what I was saying. See, my brain scattered. Um, I realized when I was watching it as it was rendering that there's a typo in my morning video. I feel dumb. There are some words that I can spell. And then there are other words that no matter how many times I have seen them spelled, looked them up and spelled them correctly, I the next time I go to write that word, I do the exact same typo. One of those words is towards. I at one point in the video I put in the subtitle, so I turned my feet towards home, and I misspelled the word. So forgive me for my misspelling. Towards is one that I always misspell. Uh, Another one I always misspell is machine. And for whatever reason, even though I know the spelling rule of I before E except after C, every time I type out or write out friends, it becomes fiends for just a minute before I catch myself and fix it. It's one of those typos that just, I guess if you're ever sure or not sure if something is from me, just try and get me to type you something and not have spell check on, because those are my big tells. I can't spell a lot of things. Anyway, enough rambling. I had a lovely walk. I then realized that I only had leftover soup for lunch, which worked. And then I edited the video for tomorrow, and now I am doing the video for tonight. Because I am living on the edge here lately. I was thinking that given all of the writing that I need to do and the fact that I don't really have a word processing program, I mean, I probably do, I just don't know how to use it. These might not end up being nightly. We'll see. I'm going to try to keep up the pace, but writing a book report every single day is, it's interesting to do. Anyway, we shall see. But no matter what, we are going to jump back in and see what is going on in my recap of Chapter 12 of the Phoenix Unchained by Mercedes Lackey and James Mallory. I'll probably be looking down at my notes a lot because, you know, I don't have a teleprompter. And Chapter 12 is titled Into the Veiled Lands. So Chapter 12, if you remember, Chapter 11 ended with with some glowing orange balls floating up from the bottom of this very dark cave, and a deep voice saying, "Welcome, I've been waiting for you." So that was where we left off. Chapter 12, Into the Veiled Lands, begins with Tercel and Harrier panicking. Harrier starts elbowing Tercel and being like, okay, do the thing, make the light, because something is out there and I don't know what it is. He's freaking out. Tercel is also freaking out, and he summons the biggest mage light that he can possibly summon. It lights up. The boys take a second to marvel at the fact that they're in an even bigger cave than the one in the last chapter. And they look down, and at the bottom of this cave, because they're kind of up above it, at the bottom of this cave floor, they see a dragon. It's a very big dragon. In fact, Harrier thinks that it's big enough to swallow a horse in one gulp and not even notice it. They're a little bit flummoxed. You know, I was thinking when I was walking, it's, for the boys, they know that dragons are real. They know that dragons are real, magic is real, there are elves in their world, but none of them are things that they expect to see. So it would be like me going out on a walk through the woods, and I was thinking about it, I was like, would it be like me running into a bear? No, not really, because I would expect to see a bear. I know that there are bears out in the woods. I think it would be kind of akin to me going for a walk in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and running into an elephant. Because I know that elephants exist. I know that they don't live anywhere near me. So I think that the boys running into a dragon in the bottom of a cave, it would be about like me going out for a walk and running into an elephant. So they're definitely flummoxed. Flummoxed is a great word. The dragon speaks up again, and yeah, Tercel and Harrier are just like, And Tercel also realizes that the sense of wrongness, the sense of him feeling like creepy crawlies, it's actually coming from the dragon. That's actually a really good thing, though, because once he identifies where the feeling is coming from, it doesn't go away, but it becomes much easier for him to handle. He's like, oh, okay, this weird feeling in the pit of my stomach means there's a dragon around. Gotcha. Put a pin in that. It will be important later. So the dragon looks up at them and he's like, yeah, I've been waiting for you. Harrier, being Harrier, looks back at this giant dragon that could eat a horse in one gulp and starts arguing with it. Harrier's like, excuse me, you can't have been waiting for us because we didn't even know we were coming here until this afternoon. The dragon looks up and he says, Harrier Gillian, I have known that I would meet you here in this cave since before you were born. And granted, I haven't been waiting in this cave since before you were born. I've only been here for about a day. And I'm hungry. My long ago, I was told that I was never going to have to hunt for myself or go hungry again. I am tired of waiting, so let's go. Tercel understandably says, excuse me, where are we going with you? The dragon looks up and says, we are going to visit my bonded in the elven lands. They want to know who his bonded is, and the dragon lets them know. So I want to read you this from page 280, if I can find it. Give me 1 second. Had to get the glasses out to actually see this. So the dragon looks up, and Tercel says, go? His voice slides upwards into a squeak. Where are we going? The dragon sighed again. We are going to the elven lands, which is where you wanted to go in the first place. It's not that I don't think that travel isn't broadening for young minds, but Germain doesn't think that you would reach your destination on foot, leaving aside the matter that it would take you another year to get there. So we'll take a faster route. Germain, said Tercel. My bonded, you know you really can ask all of these questions after I've had dinner. We're going to see the king of the elves, Tercel said. Tercel couldn't quite believe what he was hearing. Maybe Germain was a common elven name. Certainly not. We are going to Kerhelengedarga. Kara Hera ha ha ha, said Harrier. You can learn how to pronounce it later, said the dragon. Do come along. I wanted to read that because me and Harrier, we agree. I still am not quite sure how to say the name of the elven city that they are headed to. Kara Helangrador. That's as close as I can get. Again, I'm pretty sure that for elvish names, most authors just hit their keyboard a few times and then insert some vowels in amazing places. So Harrier is like, we're going to Karahawahuaha. Alkandar says, yeah, that's where we're going. Because we obviously know there really is only one Germain. Tercel, though, has not gotten that into his head, and he runs up to the dragon and he says, please, we can't just call you dragon. You know our names. What's your name? My name is Ankeldar, the dragon said kindly. No, it isn't, said Harrier instantly, and Tercel groaned, but he had a sinking feeling. Germain and Ankeldar, Germain and Ankeldar, his mind chanted. This wasn't just any black dragon. This was the star-crowned Ankeldar who had fought against the Undarkened, whose bonded was Germain Dragon Rider, the king of the elves. So we know from having read the last series that Germain is not the king of the elves. I mean, not unless something really, really big has changed. But off they go. They follow Ankeldar. Harrier still grumbling under his breath that is not Ankeldar. I'm sorry, I am not believing that. I do love Harrier. They follow Ankeldar for about an hour through some twists and turns and deeper into the cavern. And finally they come to an area that there just seems to be a little pond, a pool. Ankeldar says, all right, this is the doorway. Jump on in. Harrier, being Harrier, argues this point because he doesn't really want to get wet. Ankeldar's like, or don't, see if I care. Tressel goes ahead, he jumps in, and it's a very unique experience. It's described as taking forever, but taking no time at all, of feeling like you're falling both down and up at the same time, gut-wrenching, not exactly what the boys were expecting. Harrier comes out of it cursing like a dock rat. Tressel notices when they get there, despite the fact that it was just getting dark when they went into the cave, they're now in a forest and it is bright daylight. You know, evidently either they lost or gained time by taking this magical door or magical pond, or they are far, far, far away from where they started, so far away that the time has changed. But they get up. They're not soaking wet from the pond. They are a little bit wet because they didn't stay on their feet coming out of this magical doorway, so they've got a little bit of dew on them. But they come out and they look around. Ankeldar and Harrier continue arguing. Ankeldar is like, I am Ankeldar. Harrier still is not believing it. Tressel tries to make peace between them, and he tries to distract Harrier with the forest. Look at this beautiful forest. Harrier agrees that it's beautiful. It also reminds him of Tressel's rich uncle's estates, where his uncle has just a whole flock of gardeners that keep it perfect and looking like a storybook. Tressel kind of wonders if maybe the elves use magic to keep their forest beautiful. Ankeldar turns back and he points them to a little road, probably a lot like the little roads that I follow. You know, just a little trail in the woods. And he says, you know what? I will see you guys later, but I'm hungry. I want to see my bonded. If you walk for a while this way, you will eventually see what you need to see. And off he goes. Tressel is walking along, and he keeps thinking that he's seeing things out of the edge of his vision. And there's a lot to look at. He's looking around and he's seeing birds that he's never seen before. None of the trees look like trees that he knows. And none of the berries and fruits look familiar to him at all. But he's also, yeah, definitely seeing flickers of other things. He asks Harrier if he notices anything about the forest. Harrier says no. Tressel points at what he thought was a bird, but actually has the body of a human, and Harrier is just like, okay, this is weird. We are definitely not in the city anymore. They actually then start going back to their original argument of whether or not Ankeldar is the Ankeldar. They continue bickering as they walk along until, poof, they hear a voice. And the voice says, I see you. They look around, they don't see anybody, and then suddenly an elf appears. It's almost the way Kellen thought of the first elf he saw, or the way Killarnan thought of the first elf he saw, that they just seem to materialize. Tercel, being Tercel, walks up to this elf and is like, who are you? The elf starts looking hostile and is just standing there staring at him. Another elf appears, and the two elves begin very politely arguing. And what they're arguing about is whether or not these two scruffy humans are the ones that Great Father has been waiting for. Now, Harrier is like, excuse me, who are you? Where are you? Why are we here? Are we going to this Karahara whatever place? The elves just ignore him. They obviously notice him. It's not like the magical creature that Tercel met that only saw him. But they're just ignoring him. Harrier begins losing his temper. And honestly, I think a lot of Harrier's temper stems from the same place as Ankildar. I think Harrier's hungry again. All right, I have another quote from the book that is quite amusing, at least to me. And it is from page 293. Just a little one. So Harrier goes up to the elves and he says, hey, excuse me, I'm Harrier Gillian, and this is Tercel Rolfert, and this Ankildar sent us this way, but I think we're lost. The elf looks at him and says, it would be difficult for you to lose yourself. Did you properly follow Ankildar's directions? And then she turns back to argue with the other elf. Harrier says, well, you see, that's the thing. He said that we were supposed to end up at Karahela Dragonlore or someplace like that, and all we've seen is this forest. We've been wandering around for about a bell and a half. This is a great forest, but do you think maybe... Tercel interrupts him. Harrier is very irritated at this point, and he lets Tercel know that it's either too late or too early in the day to watch a couple of elves stand around and argue about whether or not you are who they think you are. And according to Harrier, he's just like elves. They're supposed to be wise and all-knowing. Well, maybe they could at least be useful and take us to wherever we're supposed to go. The elves then point out, the female elf points out to the male that, fine. We will take these humans to Great Father. We will take them. The female elf points out to the male that elven ways and human ways are not the same, and Great Father will know what to do with them. Tercel thinks about this for a while as they are following these two elves, and he kind of thinks that despite all of the reading that he has done in his ancient history, they know nothing about elves. They know nothing about elven culture, and Tercel kind of feels like maybe they've done something wrong. After about an hour, they arrive. Oh, it says here for me to read a little bit more. Well, I can probably do that. Ah, yes. This was something that highly amused me, and I figured it would amuse you guys as well. They finally arrive somewhere, and the elf says, here we are, brother, in the midst of Karahalan... Yeah, I'm not even going to try it. About to arrive at Great Father's house, the female elf Ulurinian observed. Indeed, sister, it is so. And we shall arrive soon upon our doorstep, and were there anyone accompanying us, but alas, there is not, for no one has seen us, we would offer them the hospitality of our father's home and hearth. It is indeed very sad that no one has seen us, said the male elf, gazing into space. Most sad, said the female. I see you, and you see me, and that is as it should be. But as for the rest, I see you, Rifaliniel. I see you, Elurin. Oh my goodness, these names, said Tercel, finally getting the idea. And then Tercel says, do you see me? The elf, actually, especially the female elf, we're just going to call her E, because I can't say that name right now. She finally turns and, with a sigh of relief, acknowledges Harrier and Tercel. We get the impression that this is two probably very young elves. They've never seen a human. They don't know how to deal with humans, and I doubt that they are elven knights trained in war manners. The female elf then scolds her brother, reminding him again that human ways are not elven ways, and she welcomes the boys into the house of Marketh, where Tercel has been long awaited. The boys realize that the forest that they thought they were standing in is actually like the front porch of a house. It's a lot like it was for Kellen back in the Obsidian trilogy, where suddenly he realizes he is in the middle of an actual city. Tercel's like, Harrier, we're standing in front of a house. And Harrier's like, yeah, we've been in front of a house this whole time. So obviously Harrier noticed this long before Tercel did. I do find it interesting, and I kind of always wonder if I could build a house that would measure up to like an elf house in Sims, or at least an elven house in the manner that Mercedes Lackey and James Mallory has come up with, that just blends in with the background so well that you don't even notice it until like you're in it. I don't know if I could do that or not. Might be a project for the winter. Anyway, the door opens and they are welcomed by another elf. This one gives an impression of being older, and she immediately begins scolding the two that met Harrier and Tercel. She lets Harrier and Tercel know that they were obviously raised by fawns, be welcome in our home and at our hearth, and she lets them know that they will be guided to rooms where they can eat, bathe, rest, and refresh themselves, and then they will be taken to meet Great Father Germain. Tercel wants to look around the room once they get to their little suite of rooms, but all Harrier wants is food. He heard the word food come out of the elven lady's mouth, and he can see it on the table. They've got a beautiful suite. It's got a sitting room, and then off of the sitting room, there are 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and they sit down and eat. They don't really know what they're eating. Everything that looks like one thing actually tastes like another, but everything is good and it's filling. Harrier is now happy. After they're done eating, they explore their suite a little bit and try and figure out which room belongs to which of them. Harrier figures it out the easy way by looking in the clothes press and discovering that all of the clothes that are in there definitely wouldn't fit him, but they would fit Tercel. So this must be Tercel's room. And he lets Tercel know that hopefully he will also have a bathing room as he heads off to check out the other room and see if it is indeed for him. It is, but Tercel gets in a joke about how if not, Harrier can't use his bathroom, he can just go stand in the rain. It's a small little happy moment between the two of them. Tercel goes in and he takes a bath, discovering that the bathing room has much of the same things that he would have back in Armethyle, but everything is just so much more beautiful. Everything in this elven house is exquisitely crafted and just amazing. The bathtub is made out of elvenware, which still in the city fetches an incredibly high price. And Tercel's like, yep, this is almost like my bathtub back home, except I feel like I'm taking a bath in a piece of jewelry. But it does work. He comes out of the bath, he's feeling much better. He puts on some of the elven clothes, which fit him absolutely perfectly. He wanders around a little bit and realizes he hasn't seen Harrier in a while. And kind of wonders, is Harrier like, did he just fall into the bathtub and we're never going to see him again? So he goes and he pokes into Harrier's rooms in the suite of rooms that they were given. He finds Harrier sprawled out asleep on his bed. Tercel shrugs and decides he's not tired enough to take a nap, and nobody's come for them yet. He doesn't exactly feel like being a terrible house guest and poking around on his own, so he decides to go and check out the bookshelves. Now, me personally, I would have been at the bookshelves immediately, probably before I ate. Maybe. Depends on how hungry I was. But Tercel finally makes it over to the bookshelves. He's poking around. He opens up beautifully illustrated books. Most of the books that he sees seem to be in a foreign language that he assumes is Elvish. Some of the books are in a form that he can actually read, but a lot of those turn out to be poetry, which is nice, but not really Tercel's thing. Finally, as he is perusing these bookshelves, he finds a volume, 6 volume set that are titled A Brief Essay on Recent Events. Again, like I said, 6 volumes is a brief essay. Obviously, that was written by an elf, so I guess 6 volumes would be brief. Tercel cracks them open, happy to discover that he can actually read them, and he begins to read and quickly realizes that recent is just as much a relative term as being called a brief essay when there are 6 volumes, because the very first book begins with the founding of Armethyle. Thinking that any books this old might actually have some high magic in it, that gets Tercel very excited. He doesn't know when Harrier is going to wake up. He doesn't know when their hosts are going to come and get them to meet this Germain, possibly the king of the elves. So Tercel gets himself a lamp, turns it up nicely, and settles in to read a brief essay on recent events. And that is where the chapter ends, with Tercel reading happily, Harrier with his belly now full and his everything now clean, taking a probably well-earned nap, and that is where the chapter ends. So that's a pretty important chapter. Obviously, we know that Ankeldar is the Ankeldar, but you can't really fault either one of the boys for kind of doubting that. I mean, they don't really know how long elves live. They just know that they're long-lived. It's not completely unprecedented that Germain would still be alive, but if Germain is truly alive, he's going to be very old. Think maybe even older than Morsel from the last 3 books, and Morsel was pretty dang old. We'll know for certain when we actually meet Germain in future chapters. because we do know that the one true sign of aging among elves is they do go gray, or more specifically, white-haired. But if Germain is indeed the Germain, which we're pretty sure he is, then that would put him at probably 1100 years old, minimum, if not older. We never did find out how old he was in the first trilogy because Kellen was always too polite to ask, but he was definitely old enough to be a full knight. So, interesting developments. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed that chapter. I hope that you enjoyed my unhinged retelling of that chapter. And I will see you when I see you.